Up, a podcast about breakups, love, and pop culture. I'm your host, Isabella Shields, and this week I'm joined by one of the nicest, most joyous, and most genuine people I've ever met, Cameron Mackay. Cameron is a filmmaker, composer, and environmentalist. His background is in climate change research and traditional Scottish music, and through short documentary films, he tells stories about sustainability, Scottish culture, and the natural world. I met Cameron in the first year of university in the Glasgow Uni Union through mutual friends, and since then, Cameron is someone I've always turned to for deep cut chats on relationships, anxiety, and Taylor Swift. Hi, Cameron!
Hello, lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
That was a very nice introduction. I feel like that sets the bar very high, or the brownest, very highbrow for the conversation we're about to have, so...
Now I feel like mentioning Taylor Swift got us off the hook with a lot of the highbrow.
It's the segue. Yeah. I think honestly, it's 2020. She was saving up that folklore energy for right when we all needed it, and I think I'm just very grateful for that.
Me too. I spoke briefly about folklore in the episode I had with Christopher and Ailish, but I think we should do a deep dive at some point. We can maybe do a Taylor Swift episode in the future, but today's episode is all about anxiety. A topic very close to my heart as a very anxious person.
And as is mine, I think that's one of our real bonding points, is that, so absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of our uni time was spent with both of us sitting in Little Italy on Byers Road, really working through point by point various moments and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, who needs a therapist when you've got Little Italy and Isabella Shields?
I'm Cameron Mackay.
Exactly.
Cameron is the biggest empathizer I've ever met. There are so many people that can really think through a situation, but honestly, if I ever need you to just put yourself in the story, you're so good at it. You do it top to toe, limb to limb. You are in. You are there.
Oh, we'll soon find out.
Yeah. Our first question is...
Yes.
This is actually the interesting one.
Okay.
Okay. In my professional life, I'm in control of everything. I've worked really hard for a long time at being this disciplined, so it's paid off in my career, but it's caused problems in past relationships. How can I communicate to my current partner that I need a lot of control to feel comfortable without seeming like a complete psycho?
I mean, I think it's that thing though, isn't it? It's control. Control is what we're all kind of governed by in a relationship, isn't it? But so the thing here is, I suppose, communication. I think that's one of these things that, how many times have you been in a situation where, someone gives you advice, and the advice is literally just communicate to someone how you feel, and you're like, oh, that's genius.
Groundbreaking, inspirational.
Yeah.
but the thing is, I can see why this one would go really wrong with the person. I can see why this would cause problems in past relationships. I think I am someone who needs things to be a certain way, but I don't think I have control over every aspect of everything.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what is the limit of control over your life that you would accept as this person's partner?
Okay. So what is that? Is that messaging? Is it what you do? I mean, are they living together?
Well, these are the questions. This seems like a new partner to me, and they're worried about seeming like a complete psycho.
But it's funny because when you've got a new partner, there's that super exciting phase, but that's matched with this kind of anxiety of figuring out all these things. And it is, because you can't, it's not like you can just sit down and say exactly what you need.
Yeah.
You've got to feel it out because everyone will be different. But, I think for me in that situation, I think for me in my head, it's just a constant battle between being able to just sacrifice my life to the universe and just let it guide me, and also having control. But yeah, but the thing is though, it is that position where every little thing you it's just the consequences can seem so big for this just small little bits of behavior. And it's that idea of it's scary when you're facing someone that the communication isn't necessarily established, and there's just that uncertainty.
Yeah,
it's not an answer, but I'm just oh.
But also I know that at the start of a relationship, I want to seem super aloof. I think I say that as someone who does need I need things clean. I need things it's for my anxiety, but beyond that, I want to know what I'm doing. I suck at walking somewhere if I don't know where I'm going. I need to know it's that kind of thing, and I do really sympathize and empathize with this person, because if you're doing something like all day, like I have a lot of commitments, and if I'm doing something like all day long, I need to know like at the end of it that there's like a payoff for that almost, or like
Yeah.
something that I'm gonna do that I'm really gonna enjoy. Like I've got this film that I'm gonna watch at the end of the day. I've got like this coming up. But I also really like it if I get like surprised by stuff. I like it if like things go like a different way. I like it if somebody else takes the reins.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
but if this person really doesn't, I think they really do need to communicate that, because they either need to communicate it or like learn a bit of flexibility. Is
But
my
is that
take.
yeah, and it's like, but I get it. Like, is that like, look, because obviously there's some either that professional, control's important, and like, professionally we need control because it's just like control, goal setting, meeting targets, meeting deadlines. Like that's how you get places. But to that you need a lot of certainty. But when you transition into like your romantic life and there's a lot of uncertainty, but it's a kind of like speaking a different language. How do you? But I think you're right. It's a communication thing, and you know, is that a good example to just sit down with your partner and just like lay out how you feel and what you want, and then if they respond well, great, and if they don't, then you know that that's not maybe a fit.
Yeah, it's funny with these like kind of incompatibility issues, because like I think there's such a learning curve in every single relationship, but it just depends on like how much time and energy you as an anxious person can dedicate to that. Because I know that for people who have anxiety more than like other people, it can snowball in a way that somebody might be like, okay, whatever. Like for me, I know that if there's something that's bothering me, that's the day, if you know what I mean. Like when I've got like 2 minutes of free time to like think or go and make a tea, I'm like, that's really like picking on my brain. Like I need to deal with that like now.
Yeah, it's like as soon as a seed's planted in your mind, you can't just brush it off. It has to be dealt with. Like, it's not just going to go away on its own.
Yeah.
But it's, I was going to say, like, it's like a question of obviously letting go of control is like a whole part of like relationships, right? But when you're anxious, that there's a threshold that you maybe can't go beyond, and it's just finding that point of how much control you can let go of, and then that's a point you can communicate to your partner. But at the same time, like, it can take an entire relationship to figure those things out. Like, you don't need to go to your partner with all the answers. I think a lot of the time just opening a dialogue can be such a liberating thing if it's reciprocated by someone who feels the same way.
Yes, because you don't want to be like a dom in your whole relationship unless that's something that somebody else wants. Like you don't want to make unless you like are totally committed to that, are totally committed to just being like in control of every single movement, and like you get gratification from that. In that case, you need to find someone very specific, I think, who would be like willing to give up a lot of their sort of free will.
yeah, exactly. But I think within that as well, like it's they're saying like, oh, they don't want to seem like they're unhinged or whatever, or they don't want to, you can hold back a lot from saying that. Like, can I share a bit of wisdom that someone said to me once, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So someone was like, right, so someone said like there's two ways to think about how you deal with yourself, right? There's a carpenter and a gardener. The gardener is going to like, grow a plant, just going to water it, sense what it needs, water every day, but let it become its own thing. And then like a carpenter is going to chisel away at something until they have the perfect image of what they want in their head. But in doing so, they chisel away the fundamental parts of who they are. Someone said this to me, and I'm really ripping that off. So like, this is not coming from my brain. So, but I think, but the goal then is to let go of being a carpenter and be a gardener. We all need to be gardeners. It's climate change. We got to garden, grow the trees. But when you hear that, it's like, God, because I am just chiseling away at things, trying to create this thing, trying not to seem like over the top, but then to try and have that control.
Yes.
But it's not as easy as just saying that.
No, like I'm so on the same page. Like I am so, and like the other part of it that I find really hard, and I think this person's going to find hard as well when they're trying not to be a total psycho, is this like performance of being the gardener when you are the carpenter. Being the carpenter like really resonates with me. When Harlan used to come over, the flat was like spotless. And it just would be because I would be like, cool, like when I wake up I'll just like make it spotless, that's fine. And that's how I'll be happy for the rest of the day. The minute I've used a dish, it's done, and all that kind of thing. And like Yeah, then Harlan, you came to my house once when we were in second year, and I was like, "Can you just wait in the hall while I make sure my room's clean enough for you to come in?"
I
And
remember
like that was like, I still do that to Harlan sometimes, but Harlan was like, it was actually a relief to come over and for your house not to be as tidy as not. Like
Yeah.
like it was a sign that you'd like let me in a bit and you're more comfortable.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So like,
Yeah.
because like when you are like someone who is knows how they like their life to go, so you're very organized and tidy, does that then set up an opportunity in relationship to just have like give moments where you let the other person in? And I think that can be really nice moments where like, right, you're coming into my room and it is messy. This is a thing. But in the act of doing that, I think that can be quite a bonding moment, because
Yeah.
obviously like I don't know this person, but like, the act of giving up control, those can be really lovely moments in a relationship where you do just like, visibly just say, right, I'm letting this go. So maybe there's a lot of opportunity. Obviously, it's a really stressful situation. It's difficult, but like, is there maybe within that opportunities
For
going forwards?
intimacy, yeah, because it is
Yeah.
intimate. But also, like, the thing is that when Harlan said that to me, as much as like I've taken it as a compliment now, at the time I was like, "Oh right, okay, so my room's like messy, like everything's messy." Like that's how I internalized that in the moment. That's totally not what Harlan meant. Harlan was like, "Oh yeah, I really appreciated that you like trust me more to be like that guard is down." And I think like relationships are all about letting those guards down.
Yeah.
But only in a way, like there's a difference between having your guard up and having a boundary.
That's really interesting. You're coming up with some great sound bites here. I feel like you should be writing these down. Put on motivational posters. Make TikToks about these little sound bites.
I think I am someone. I think I'm definitely someone who, in relationships, like I've had these conversations with ex-boyfriends as well. Like in the past, has just had like a huge wall up, but I think I'm being really open.
Yeah.
And then like I think Harlan's really the only person who's like gotten past that, but there's still like boundaries still need to exist. Like I still need things clean. I still need things like dealt with in the ways I want them dealt with. Like if I'm like, another funny thing is just like if I'm gonna be there, like I need it to be almost like a date, like every time.
Yeah.
Which is like super high strung. But like I don't need that like for every single minute, but I need like for us to do something together. Like I want to watch a film and have a nice meal, and then if I'm over for like a couple of days, that can kind of fall away a bit. But I need things to be like kind of high key initially.
Yeah. But then is there also something really empowering? So like I'm thinking back to the question, like, it's talking about control as almost being an issue, but is there something empowering about owning that need for control in certain areas and being like, this is what I need, this is me? Is that something that can be a positive thing? A bit more like self-love, maybe?
Yeah, like, I think so. I think it is I think it's knowing exactly what, I think it's very attractive to know what you want.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a very good way to go forward as long as you don't become a controlling partner.
No, but even getting there is I feel like, especially with dating and get the spectrum of dating to relationships, it is a journey. Like, you don't get like relationship education in school. We're all going in blind. We're all going in like, especially like, now, I don't know what percentage of new couples or what percentage is now first dates meet off apps,
Yeah, of course.
So when you do that, you have no pre-understanding of someone. And so you've got to own something and know what you want. But it is hard too, because you know what you want. Say you know someone before, and then after months of friendship or knowing them, you ask them on a date, you get them, you know what you'd want from them. But there's this thing now where you're dating, you have to figure out what you want simultaneously while dating someone and just hope that they simultaneously like align.
Yeah. You need the mesh in a way that we needed the mesh before. Do you feel like that in gay culture as well, like more than straight culture maybe?
Well, I think that in kind of like, I don't know if it's in queer cultures how much where it lies on that spectrum, but it is very app based, and it's kind of, everyone's like, what you're looking for, what and within, if you, there's just this like meme of like gay dating. It's like, what are you looking for, and I think with that, it's like nobody knows, and I think it's quite hard because I think I don't know. I think with dating as well, and I can only speak from kind of the experience that I'm kind of aware of, but like you start dating so much later. So like I think maybe if you're queer and you're or gay or however you kind of want to identify, I know those words mean different things for different people. But when you're in your like say like early mid-20s, you could actually be dating for the first time when all your peers are like quite experienced. So for you to know what you want, and to meet another another queer person who may have had a lot more experience than you, but you literally like you could be going on your first date at like 21, and then at that point you're like, well, actually I don't really know what I want, and everyone seems very certain. So it can be quite difficult. But then at the same time, like I say that, like I'm sure there's a lot of heterosexual couples or people who wouldn't identify as queer in whatever way who would empathize with the same thing.
This is interesting. I was listening to the creators of Pen 15, which is a great new, like a sitcom about like two 30-year-old women who recreate their experiences in middle school, which is when you're like, I think 13 to 15 in America.
Okay.
Someone fact check me and I'm sure I'll be wrong. But they're adult women selves and the rest of the cast are 13-year-olds. And it's really, like, it's really, really funny, it's really sharp, and it's really, really sensitive. But one of the things I heard them talk about on an interview they had with NPR was the fact that when you're in middle school in America, because it's just that age group, you have no one to model from. And like modeling is the biggest part of like growing up and experiencing like development in some way. And I think because so much of the media, or at least mainstream media, is to do with like straight couples, like your parents, if you're the children of a straight couple, will be a man and a woman. Your peers broadly will probably be like heteronormative in their behavior when you're teenagers at least. For gay people and queer people, I think it's a harder time to actually like understand what you want based on the examples you've been given.
That's really interesting. And I think if we're talking about gay couples or people that are gay that are dating, queerness is much, obviously, being gay and queer are different, but like, if you're a man who's interested in men, you have some examples, you have kind of, there's movies, although a lot of the time it's stereotypical and maybe overdone, or, there's issues with it, but there are examples. But like, I imagine being, queer, a different kind of, identifying other than gay or there's just literally, I mean, again, I might not know and I'd love to know more if there is stuff out there, but there's so few things, like you're saying being gay is like, it could be a lot worse, being gay, you actually do have some, especially now, like, for younger generations, films like Love, Simon and all that are coming out, it's becoming a kind of part of, but that's still quite, it's men dating. What about, queer women and everything else that would fall under the LGBTQIA plus spectrum of dating? Like, I'm just sitting here talking about, gay dating, but I feel like that's the tip of the iceberg, right?
Of course. So then, like, even then, with like, what are you looking for in broad spectrums like that? And I think people are obviously a lot more understanding of the fact that like gender's fluid, like sexuality's fluid, and there are so few models. And like, also talk about polyamory as well. There are so few, like, almost, I don't know, it's funny to say like concrete and fluid in the same breath, but like concrete examples of like how to interact within those relationships that are like relationships to model. And I'm not even saying that like the examples we've been given of heteronormative society are things to model from, but they give us some indicator of the fact like, oh, we'll go on dates, I like this, there's like a set menu for how people are going to behave. I think there are also set examples of like what you should be attracted to, and I think that's really harmful, like, because I always remember like watching films, like I wasn't attracted to anyone really who was supposed to be like advertised to me. I think it's because I had like the biggest crush of my life on Richard from Friends was like the big crush that I had, because like I never saw anyone like him when I was like a child in the 2000s. And like I love the fact that and like this has come up again and again in the podcast, but like hairy, big, like manly men who take up a lot of space. I was like, oof, like that was like my genre for a while. And then but the two types I've kind of consistently had through my life are like hairy, voluminous dark hair, and then like blonde, lean, like sports bodies. And like like I've gone between them. I'm sorry to the gingers in my life, you've not been a part of it so far. But like those have been like the types. And then like I wonder how much that's been dictated by like what I've been fed in the early noughties, and then like what I wanted to see in the early noughties, which was like Richard from Friends versus like Brad Pitt. So,
but that's so interesting, because like, I think within I think this is a lot of things, but like there's a difference between what society says it allows and what you're shown in the media. So like, obviously right now, if you're I suppose being gay is and being homosexual in that way, and that's maybe okay-ish, but beyond that there's a lot of it's a shame, but I don't think we're maybe there to kind of broadcast as a national country that's perfect, because there's still issues. But what I mean is, within that, you're in some aspects you're told this is fine now. However, what you see in the media is just what percentage of couples do you see when you're growing up in TV, in magazines, etc. Magazines, does anyone read magazines anymore, on the internet, that are like them? What percentage of couples do you see that are like you versus ones that you're not? And when that percentage is skewed against couples that aren't like you, what does that do to your sense of who you are
and what's valuable?
Yeah, and we're talking about queer couples here, but what about do you think this affects women in relationships? Because even now you see a lot of relationships in TV and things that are still sometimes it's a bit sure, there's a sexist character, okay, but what image is that given across? And if that's all we see, is that still a thing, do you think? Is that better now?
God.
Is that...
No, that's completely a thing. I remember basically had Lisa Simpson syndrome for very young, which just involves being skeptical of everything apart from Nelson Muntz's of the world, and even then, your expectations are let down. But I really do think that there's a homogenization of taste that comes from what women are fed and what women are told is acceptable. I have friends now that think that men being hairy is a bad thing, and I guess I was about to say, because of swimming when I was younger, because I used to be a competitive swimmer, I was never exposed to hairy bodies, because everybody was always either shaving their legs, shaving their chest, keeping everything pretty slick and smooth for aerodynamicism, but also to meet certain body expectations. When I saw chest hair, when I saw a really hairy person, I was just so into it. I just thought it was incredible. But I knew at the time, I think one of the reasons I was also really drawn to it was quite taboo for me to be invested in it, even at that super 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 minute level. Because I knew that body hair on women was also disgusting. I knew that but which isn't true. And now
exactly,
I love seeing a hairy woman. I love seeing hair on anyone. I'm just so into hair because I've been taught so much that I shouldn't be, and I have massive problems with authority and being told what to do. But I think,
well, let's just take that back to the anxiety conversation, because I think that's a big
that's where I get this person. That's where I get why I hated your professional.
How did anyone from our generation, how are we doing? The kind of 1994s, 1996s, we have a national check-in on our year group to be how are we doing?
I would love to find. We'll do a survey.
A survey.
But yeah, I just think the pressure to conform versus the pressure that this person who is determined to have some kind of control over their life is putting on themselves and the other person is so subjective.
Yeah, because are they measuring themselves on what they see as being an idealized relationship, as opposed to measuring themselves on what will feed them the best?
Yes.
And which is, I suppose, have we cracked it? Is that it? We've done it.
Maybe that's just the balancing act. That's what they need to work, the scales they need to put it against, to be what is this good because of what I expect, because of what I'm being told to expect, or is this good because it gives me what I need to get, and that should or shouldn't, and then from there, should that be different, shouldn't it be different, and what?
Because in relationships now, especially with social media, with going out dating, how performative do we feel the need to be in relationships? And do we feel the need to perform some kind of normalized thing to show that, hey, look at me, I'm living this normal relationship, which I think so many people do? Because I think, there's this kind of, I don't like the word normal, but there's a kind of normative, just to add some more letters. In society, there's a way that you're expected to be. And if you happen to fall into that, great, you are not, excused from any anxiety or issues, but there's, in some ways, that's fine. But then it's the energy putting into establishing yourself out with that. Is that what causes anxiety? One of the causes of anxiety, and then you're in a relationship where you're oh, actually, I think I know who I am, but out with this sphere of what you see everywhere.
Yeah, because like,
and then that's going to cause issues.
Of course it is. Me and my sister and my sister's boyfriend and my mum and dad were watching this show called Indian Matchmaking, and the main thing that women are told throughout that whole program is that you have to compromise. Love is a compromise. It's all about compromise. It's all about like adapting yourself. But there's one character who goes through the whole matchmaking process and it's just like, do you know what, this isn't for me because I don't think I should have to compromise to the point where my career, and she's just great, and she's like,
career,
because the guy, like the matchmaker is like, well, she goes and she's like, I'm really like thriving in my career at the moment, I'm like the best it's ever been, I'm working from the city I'm working in, and like I have no intentions of moving because it's all going so
which
well.
in itself, as we were saying before, people who know that what they want, that's what can kind of attraction can suffer. So is this person in some ways not just exhibiting such a lovely quality of this passion for what they do, this drive and this certainty
and self-knowledge? And then like the matchmaker's like, well, if your husband wants you to move, you're gonna have to move. I moved for my husband, it was the best decision I ever made for in my life, and if you can't do that, then you're just not ready to date, like you're not acceptable to a husband, basically.
Which is kind of putting a very kind of like and again, obviously there's a cultural barrier here and things, so you know, I don't get the full picture, but you know, if you were to say that in like, you know, in our circle, like it's almost as if the norm that they're forcing someone into, it has elements of like, you know, gender imbalance in it.
Completely, and that's what this person said, and this person was just like, no, like if my like emotional sustenance comes from my friends right now, that's great, because like I don't need to have someone in my life that's in a romantic capacity like dictating my moves. Like I want to dictate my own moves, I want to be myself, I want to take pleasure out of my business, because like that's what I can do and that's what I know is like really strong, and if somebody else can't adapt to that, and that's fine, like I don't want somebody else.
But I think within that, like it's such a powerful thing. Like obviously with dating, there's just, you've got to keep dating, but what if you work in yourself, like, you know, like if there's, do you know what, there's this thing I always think of, like, again, it's just so cheesy, but like Cher in an interview, right?
Yes!
Do you know what I'm going to say? Do you know what I'm going to say? So she's asked like, oh, and you seemed quite bitter against men. And it's just the interview is like, and again, this is like, I always think about this. It's like, I just think it's one of the best ways to put it. She's like, men are dessert. Man is dessert. You can have a fully nourishing meal every day of your life, the rest of your life, without ever touching desserts. And you would not suffer, you would be healthy, you would get everything you need. And then the interview is like, so you don't like men? And then Cher goes, wait, but dessert's my favorite part. Dessert's amazing. I love men. I love dessert. Yeah, but I think that's it. Like, you know, you can go through, you can just let go of dessert for a bit, whatever, but it can still be the best bit, you know. And I just think that's, I mean, obviously she puts it a lot better than I do, but like, you know.
No, I think we got it. A man is the dessert.
Can I ask you a question? See, when you think of that quote, what dessert do you picture?
Tiramisu.
Oh, good. Which, is it a Little Italy tiramisu?
Yes, it is.
I love
it's either tiramisu or also like a pavlova, like a big raspberry meringue.
Yeah.
Those are like pistachios on it. Those are like my two. Those are like envisionings of and men. And I think if the hairy variety of person were a dessert, it would be tiramisu. And if the more sporty variety were a dessert, it would be a raspberry pavlova.
Amazing. Cher's words put so eloquently.
But I hope this person can take forward that like there's a difference between having a guard up and having a boundary. Flexibility is important, but also like what's nourishing to you is dependent on your needs. And do you have any final words on this?
I think you've put it well yourself. I might add, if you still feel at a loss, just pop on some Good as Hell by Lizzo and you'll ride it through. You'll be fine.
Question number 2 is, and this kind of chimes with something you said in the previous question, I feel like I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing in my relationship at any given moment. Every small decision seems like it'll have huge consequences, even though it often doesn't. Is this normal?
I think it absolutely is normal. but your brain is just like goes to the biggest thing. In a relationship, you're just your anxious mind is given so many incredible opportunities to be anxious and to overthink.
Because especially like there's a difference between a company and you being like, okay, here's my professional success potentially, and like you as the individual and your personal life, and you being like, it's just me. I don't have the company to back me up. This is just my decisions I'm making.
You can't get like relationship insurance.
Yeah, completely.
Wait,
the episode title.
Business idea. Like, right, we have the IP. You heard it here first. We will make this a thing.
Yeah.
Which I guess is me saying, if your relationship fails, we will come and be a relationship.
Yeah, like, we'll come and sub in.
We'll fill in.
But I think I'm really bad for just like things like spiral in my head. Like I'm really bad for something being like, and I was saying it earlier, like I want, if I have had like a long day of like just being in Zooms, just writing, just doing whatever, at the end of the day, I need something to be like really nice and like quite specific. Like I need a nice dinner, I need a nice thing to watch, I need something like organized. So then in my head, if I have made the promise of a nice time to somebody else, Harlan, and I feel like Harlan's bored, or Harlan like doesn't like the choice that I've made for the film, the food's like, Harlan has never complained about my food in Harlan's life, but because I love cooking, I'm really into it, and Harlan knows that would crush me like a bug. But I think like if I can tell Harlan doesn't like something as much as Harlan would like something else, if I can tell Harlan's bored with the film, the night's over for me.
Yeah, that's really also on your cooking. I just say a great Isabella Shields cooking tip: when you're cooking butternut squash and curry, cook the seeds, fry the seeds, and make a great topping. You taught me this, and it's great. Anyway, but you're so right. But I think in a relationship, like I feel like sometimes you're living in two realities. You're living in this reality, and you're living in an alternative reality. This reality, everything's fine. People are normal. Things are good, and as people don't express incredible joy at everything. Sometimes people will have, when you don't know someone's like, resting face well, but the alternative reality is like the person that you're dating like is disgusted by you. They hate you. They're like, everything you do, they're like, and it's just the two realities like have this like dance off between the two of them. And I think more often than not, this alternative reality seeps in, and it's like, the way you said hello was really offensive today. Everyone's really upset with you. And it's just like, it's this alternative thing in your brain. And I think for some, I don't know if everyone, but like that for your mind to think about is just so much more interesting than, hey, everything's fine, it's good. Like this overthinking. Yeah.
Because there's like the multiverse in which someone not enjoying something means that you're a terrible person.
Yes.
And that's the multiverse that I often live in. Of like someone expressing vague discontent with something is a sign that you are fundamentally rubbish.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely not true. And it's not what they're thinking. And it's not what you should be thinking. But it's
it because like being anxious in your head, like I feel like there's a lot of like sections of the way we think about ourselves that would be shut off, like locked, like password protected for editing. Sorry, this is coming from someone who spent too long on a computer recently. But like, like that aren't touchable, but like when you're anxious, does that just open all these different parts of your mind? So like any new input is just going to speak to them all? Like, it's, it's difficult because you'll be, and when you're dating, it is that uncertainty. It's that not knowing exactly where someone's coming from. And suddenly your whole personality is up for like critique in your mind.
Yeah, and you can't. I think it's so hard when you're very, very anxious to see like the wood for the trees when it comes. The wood's for the trees when it comes to that kind of thing, because like obviously if someone's into you and someone's going out with you, they see you as a whole, not these various little like branches and twigs of like how you see yourself and how like much of a mess they might be, or how much of like them, like everything to you is representative of you, like every single little thing. But for that person, they are seeing the woods and not the trees.
Yeah, and it is funny because I think for people who are anxious, I think a lot of the time you do sense to yourself more, maybe, and you are much more aware of what you're saying. So if you're thinking about this, maybe the chances are that you're probably coming across even better than you would have been if you hadn't been thinking about this. So like, but it's hard, and like, But it does lead to these lovely moments when you are stressed and you're like, oh, you're not sure, and someone's like, no, like you're good, like
Yeah.
don't worry about that, like everything's fine. And then there are these moments where your anxieties are just kind of, your qualms are relieved, and like I think that can be a really nice thing too. And it's like the bigger the troughs, the bigger the peaks in dating. So like, that's the thing, like it's more of a roller coaster when you think like this, but at the same time, like it does lead, when it's someone you get the highs, they're even higher. Is that a thing? I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
totally.
It's just trough after trough, I don't know.
Oh yeah, if the troughs and like the tip of the trough is as high as it gets for you, then just bin all off. But I think it is one of these things where like, if you've really been through something awful, and I can say that I have been through something really, really awful with Harlan, repeated really, really awful things relentlessly for 2 years, which is why I'm in therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder. Even the very small days when everything seems like, not even small, like even days that seem like they wouldn't be monumental to somebody else, just when everything goes like perfectly, everything goes totally to plan, are like gold, are like incredible.
Yeah.
And I think like it's very rare for me, at least as someone who suffers quite badly from like a lot of different anxieties and depression, all that kind of thing, to have like a full day where I don't have at least one thing that I can like really like peel at and pick apart and make terrible, just through like consistent like needling and like reevaluation and dismembering it and putting it all back together as this like horrible Frankenstein of a moment. And like and I think like, yeah, I totally get this person being really worried that every small decision will have huge consequences, but you'll cross that bridge when you come to it. Like, just try and keep your head above the water is my advice with it, and try not to internalize everything.
But it's such a relatable thing though. Like when you're there and you think, especially when you like someone, you're like, I like this person, and you're just, everything you do is going to mess it up. It's going to have a big consequence. Like I feel like the more you like someone, the higher the stakes get in your mind.
Really?
Like it's such a real thing, and it's just, I think you've got to just listen to the person and be open, and just, I don't know, just remember the words that they say, and be like, just go off that. Don't, because it's also trust that they are being honest as well. Like, if they're saying only good things, then you're good. Like, and I think, but it's, I don't think there's necessarily an answer in my head. It is difficult.
Yeah. I think it is normal if you're somebody who's working at like a sort of operable assumption that everything could go very badly wrong. It is normal, but it shouldn't feel normal that everything's going to have terrible consequences or huge consequences if like the increments of it don't go exactly right. And I know that as someone who does feel like that. That is like, this is a real soul to soul moment for me with this person, but like it's not livable. That like that can't dictate like everything you do. I need to remember that like you need to do things for yourself.
Like, just think, like, how much of their brain is spent wondering about how happy the other person is and how good they are making the other person feel. How much of this person's life is spent making sure that they're doing everything they can to make the person they're with feel good. So much so that they're like, talking about it, they're writing into a podcast about it. The person they're with is also in a way so lucky to be with someone that's spending so much time thinking about their needs.
Completely.
So obviously this is a difficult situation, but like, there's someone out there who is being thought about so much in such a careful, caring light. Obviously anxiety is not a good thing, but like there's, do you know what I mean? There's like kind of...
Yeah, it's a huge sign of affection. It's a huge sign of like, just care for that person, that you want things to be perfect. And I think
that was a nice one.
But no, I think it's a real sign of care that you want things to be the best they can possibly be. But I think you need to give yourself a break. And if your friend was saying all this stuff to you, you'd want to give them a break.
Oh, yeah.
So, and also if your partner was saying all this to you, you'd want to give them a break. And you'd be flattered, but you'd want to give them a break.
Yeah.
wholesome.
I got very wholesome. I love it. We've on a real journey to this podcast.
Okay, the next question is,
Cool.
This one's like a hard one. This one's like thick with feeling. So, I've just broken up with my partner of 6 months and I feel awful about myself. I didn't realise how destabilising the whole thing would be for me, and I'm struggling so much with imagining that anyone will want to be with me again. How can I convince myself this isn't the case so I can really get back into dating?
I mean, it's such a real thing of a breakup, that, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
It is kind of worst case scenario, and it sounds like it's hit them really hard, which is horrible. Like, it's this idea of, like, you see yourself through the lens of the person that you either fancy or have feelings for, the person you're with, or the person that is your ex, and you just see yourself through their lens, which is, or your perception of what their lens is. But yeah, that's just I really feel for that. That's a really horrible situation, and it's one that I think, to a greater or less extent we all get to, but it sounds like it's hit this person really hard.
Yes, because I think even if you're the person that's been dumped or you're the person that's broken up with someone, I genuinely think every time I've broken up with someone, I've been like, oh my God, but what if no one else will ever fancy me again? Like, what if that was the person that like fancied me? And I've just thrown myself into the wilderness of like a potential abyss. This was the one person, and that person's gone now. And now I'm just like the Hulk at the end of The Incredible Hulk, just trying to hitchhike along the highway. No one's going to give me a lift. And like, but it's just not true. Like, there are just so many people in the world that will like you for different reasons. And like, I've been with her for a long time, but I remember like the times I've been single, the things I've been worried about are that I'm not hot enough for like anyone to fancy ever again, that I'm too like difficult for people to fancy me like ever again, and that like, I don't know, you don't feel appealing. We had this chat the other day. The time when I've been single for the longest is school, which sounds like a really smug thing to say. But I think I've just been so like, I've had no problem ever with like letting people know that I'm into them.
Yeah.
Because I think part of my anxiety is also this feeling that like my time can be wasted, like, and I've got time, like my time's being taken up, so I'd rather just be like full frontal, if you know what I mean, and just be like, this is what's going on, this is how I feel. If this isn't on the table, that's fine, but like I need to know so that I can put it away.
Sure. And that's like a great thing to do. But like, so in the moments where you've kind of, I suppose, felt similar to this person, what have been the things that have brought you out of that thinking, what is it they said? I'm struggling to imagine that anyone will want to be with me again. That's such a real thing. That's such a really strong emotion. How do you get out of those moments when you think like that?
I think this is a really hard one, because it's like one of these things that's to do with the process of like evaluation for yourself. Like, no one is that bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody is that bad or unlovable. I've never met anyone who is like unlovable.
Yeah.
I've never met anyone who's unlovable to everyone. I've never met anyone who's unlikable to everyone. Like, it's that's not real life. Like, as long as you're functional in the world, as long as you're not behaving harmfully, like, there's someone there for you. And even if there's not someone in your like immediate circle, that's not the worst thing in the world.
No, and it's because how many, like, especially this year, like, we see such a small section of society. Like, I've met like a handful of new people this year, and
that's one thing I was going to say, because I was like, the thing that makes me feel better, like, every time this happens, is going to a party, going to like meet people, going and being like physically around people.
Yeah.
Because like, last times I've been single, like, that was what I could do. I could just go out, I could talk to somebody, I could meet someone, I could see someone that I like the look of, talk to them, assess, move on, if you know what I mean. And like, I could, and that would be it. And then like, if you're somebody, and like I'm a Leo, so like I really like parties. back to the gold star. Like, I really like talking to people, I really like being out and about. I don't need every like interaction to end positively, but like I obviously, like, as everyone else does, do everything I can to try and make sure that they end positively. And like,
which is difficult this year because it's hard. I mean, you might have a really good Zoom quiz with some people you've not met before.
But like, realistically, like, how do you go forward from that? And like, how, I just think meeting somebody online, what I would say for this person would be just to like, this sounds so rigid, this sounds so like extreme, but like at the moment the thing that I'm struggling the most with is talking to people and realizing that neither of us have that much to say beyond like talking about like what we've been watching.
Yeah.
Like especially for people that talk a lot, what we've been watching and what's happened in that day, which often isn't that different to what happened the day before.
Yeah. Like, like right now, I was worried that I'd come on the podcast and you'd be like, how do you, Cameron, what you've been up to? And I'm like, I don't know.
I think
like,
the general
that's
consensus is that no one's been up to anything apart from the things that they are paid to do.
Yeah, exactly. If we have a paid thing right now, but it's difficult. And I think, it's a difficult time, and feeling that like that now, it's hard, but it's not something there's necessarily a direct solution for.
Yeah.
But it is difficult. And I think, that mentality is something that I think a lot of the time you get out of by just like, demonstrating your self-worth to yourself, like going away with friends and having a great time and thinking, oh, that was really fun, or doing whatever work you do well, or just, going into some interaction and coming out thinking, I actually think I came across well there.
Yeah.
But right now, it's not, it's difficult. I don't have an answer.
Because I was thinking there, like, worst case scenario for me is that, like, I don't have that many friends, or they're not accessible, like, if they've moved, if they're, like, just busier than I am, like, I can't, if I'm in a position where I can't, like, get exercise, something like that, like, there are so many kind of online communities, and there are so many things that you can do within them, and, like, there are even, like, groups on whatever server, like, Discord, or, like, Reddit. I'm, like, very remotely involved in Reddit, but you are the things that you like, basically. Like, you shouldn't be measured by what other people think of you. You should be measured by what you communicate and what you enjoy. And if you communicate to a lot of other people in these like little groups, like if it's something to do with like knitting, if it's to do with crocheting, if it's just to do with watching like a TV show, and like you find a group that like really want to talk about that and really like want to get into like
the dream.
really want to get into like
that name is Robot fans. I want to talk to you.
The like every single like line of script in that show, like how beautiful the cinematography was, like blah blah blah. There's a community for you, like there's community for you everywhere, and like you're never alone, I think, is the thing to remember.
Yeah, and I think that's when you feel like that, you do feel alone. Like no one else feels as like no one else perceives themselves as bad as I do right now. Like it's and this year when our lives play out in our bedrooms, like this is my workstation, that's where I sleep. I may go out to get some food, but it's like that's such a real thing, and I think that's such a nice idea though, finding these online communities where it's not going to be perfect, but you can suddenly like geek out over this thing you love, or like find someone like, oh, I've been waiting to find someone to speak about this for ages.
Yeah.
You can then find it.
I think that will just help, and I think if you've got a close group of friends, if you've got like a not that close group of friends, just talking to them and like asking for suggestions on things. So I think one of the things that really isolates people is like not asking questions and like not getting contribution from other people. And like if you are like, and if you're not in the kind of most extreme version of this position that I can think of, which is one where you can't get exercise, you can't like talk to friends, you don't have a community necessarily, but like if you're not in that state, like if you've got not in that state, if you're not in that situation, there are so many things that you can do that you'll really enjoy. Like if you can cook for yourself, cooking for yourself is a really good way to like find yourself back. If you can talk to your friends and just like rely on them more and really tell them that like you're going to rely on them more. And then like if you can just talk to people online, like you just need to remember that it's all like a fresh start. Like this person knows nothing about you, this person has everything to find out about you, you're not what you're doing right now, you're your whole life,
And do you know as well, like, I think I wonder, this is a horrible analogy and I apologize, but like in a way are some breakups like hangovers where like, it sounds like a horror but the thing is though, like what they're describing is like the worst feeling, and I don't, obviously, like we're all experiencing at different levels, but we can all to some greater or lesser extent appreciate the situation. But it's also like a hangover where you might wake up feeling horrendous, but you're like, oh, I don't feel worried because I know exactly how this is going to play out. Today is going to be rough, but then tomorrow I'm going to be like a perfect specimen of, well, whatever health I was before again, you know. But like, I think that's the thing though, like it sounds like they are in that, you know, 11 a.m. of a
Yes.
hangover.
The fear
The
has come
fear,
over you.
the
You smell
fear.
terrible because you haven't had a shower yet. You've
You've
had
not looked at your phone
breakfast.
yet. It's
You
been
haven't
it's
looked at
been
your phone.
buzzing.
Yes.
Stuff's going down. But like, you know, it's you check your phone and someone's like, it's just like a group chat that wasn't even out. It's like emails from like, you know, Ticketmaster being like, are you still with us? Or whatever.
Someone has texted you saying that what you mentioned last night, they want to talk about again. It's not as bad as you think. You could make it seem in your head like everyone is messaging you to tell you that you've humiliated yourself. You're the worst person alive, but it's never the case.
Yeah, but no, all of us, no matter how bad you feel at the moment, there's always that little voice in your head being like, just give it 12 hours and you'll have a lot of hot chocolates and ready meals and like gin and tonic tinnies or whatever. I don't know what people do. But like, you know, you're in the middle of a process that you know, we all know how it goes. Yeah, and there's always that moment post-breakup where we're like, you have this like, oh wow, it's like, it's just the fog clears and you're like, oh, it's, I mean, for a lot of us, for some of us it doesn't, you know, but.
No, I think that's really true. And it is getting out of the hangover of the whole thing, and it is getting, and like, sometimes you're really not ready to get out of the hangover, like you're not ready to have your work day the next day. You do just need like another like 25 minutes or whatever it is in bed. Like you do just need a bit more time. You need a bit more like hibernation.
And like, you know, obviously like, you know, I think reading a question like that, you're like, oh, I want to give them a solution, but like that they are where they need to be. Sometimes you just got to be sad, and that's cool. And like the world will still wait. When you're in a breakup, you just got to take a couple of weeks to just not be good and to just like maybe take some time off work or to just like give yourself what you need. But you're going to emerge from this in 2 weeks, 2 months, whenever you do, and everyone's still going to be there. The world's still going to be turning. Like it's horrible, but like you've just got to own that moment. And I suppose
it's not permanent. It's not permanent. It's okay.
God, all these answers have become so wholesome today. Like
I know. I think it's because we're both speaking from like a very anxious place, and we're like, "What do I need to hear? What do I need to hear?" And I just need to be like stroked like a dog.
Oh my goodness,
better. But it's not permanent. You might not be ready to get back into dating if you feel that bad. Is the other thing. Like
also, this is not a bad time to not be getting back into dating.
Like unless you really trust that this person's going to be quarantining for 2 weeks before they see you and you get to have sex, and like unless you're like willing to get COVID for this person, then just keep it like I think long distance relationships, if you haven't met before, could probably be really nice. Because like my problem with long distance relationships is like once I'd had intimate relations with that person, I would find it hard to not have that anymore. My problem is my impatience with something being taken away from me. I think if you could start with like a pen pal, it's like pretty nice. It's pretty like Victorian. It's pretty good.
We can live out our Victorian like fantasies, but no, that's such a nice thing because pen pals are great until you meet them, and then you're like, I don't want to not. I'm just gonna make a new pen pal because I've met you and I want to know you. But you know, now, and I think, you know, it's nice, like, you know, the digital world's there. There's so much, like, dating. I mean, Aziz Ansari's book, Modern Romance, have you read it?
Yeah, I have. I have the audiobook.
That must be a great audiobook. You know, like, what, like, is said in that is just so lovely. It just compares dating now to what it was for, like, our grandparents, and it's a completely different thing. And I think dating is, as many things is, but particularly dating, it's on this trajectory to something very new. And a lot of that is connecting with people digitally, which, you know, for some people, especially if you grew up dating like where that wasn't an opportunity at all, it's going to seem weird and abnormal. But like now is probably one of the times where the world's changing so much. Just now, dating is changing too. But I wonder, like, I mean, I feel like, you know, I want to review that book to find the right quote, but it is a time to just think about, right, well, dating is going to mean something different for this generation. What's it going to mean in 5 years' time? Like, I don't know, but there's new ways to do things that probably are beyond what I'm currently aware of, that are probably, you know, what do I not know that's going to give me a huge amount of like satisfaction in like 5 years, 10 years that just hasn't come along yet, but it's there. It's just yet to become like mainstream.
Yes. I think that's really interesting to think about because I saw really cute dates in the park at the start of COVID when it was like maybe a 15-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy, and she'd obviously been like, I'm taking my dog for a walk. and met up with this guy in the park because I was reading in the park and I just saw them like right in front of me, and they were so awkward with each other, and they were so like hi, and always like knew each other from school, but they had to walk like 2 meters apart the whole time with this like dog in between them, and they were both like, you know, when you can see someone talking and they're like gesturing and then they become conscious of how much they're gesturing, they like like it was that, but they were so just like giddy to talk to each other, and I just thought that was so nice.
Also like a dog on a first date, like, is anything more perfect than a dog on a first date? I'd be like, sorry, that'd be the best thing in the world.
Me too. If someone brought a cat on a date, though, a cat on a leash, I'd be sick.
Okay, so I mean, this is the whole thing. What animals would you accept? So, like a rabbit on a leash, a guinea pig on a leash.
What rat would you accept? Like, I accept
if
no
someone,
rats.
So if some, okay, so no rats, because like when I was younger, before I was like, you know, like I don't know, maybe like 8 or 10. I had a rabbit and a guinea pig, and I had a little lead that had like carrots on it, and a little lead, and I'd take my rabbit and a guinea pig for a walk around the neighborhood. Oh my God. They did not want to be there. They did not want to be seen with me, but I was there like, I'm taking my 2 little pets for a walk, and
that's really sweet. But
I can't remember what the link was here, but I'm just telling your listeners.
Like this is like a separate Agniac question. If someone brought a rabbit out on a walk with you, first date, what would you think?
I think I'm down. If the rabbit was affectionate and if the rabbit was in a place where it was ready to show a human it hadn't met before, affection's great. If the rabbit didn't like me, I'd be really hurt, and that would definitely. Yeah. So wait, was that this question or the last question? It was. No, I think it was this one. You know, imagine, people. It's just that worry of people thinking you wouldn't want to be with me. I'd be getting that from the rabbit. It would be I would be kind of transferring that to the human. It would be a really downward spiral for me. But if the rabbit was affectionate, that could probably be a really good tool for me to overcome that anxiety.
I can see that. I
think what I'm like, any pets. Bring your pets.
Bring your dogs. Anything else can stay at home, as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. I'm very much a dog fan. The rest can, unless it's fish, because I have fish.
Yeah. You have fantastic
fish. Thank you. What's our final advice for this person? My advice is don't take your animal unless it's a dog onto this like new date you're going on. But just get yourself to a place where you feel really confident and comfortable before you embark outwards, because you're not going to be comfortable dating until you're comfortable with yourself. And part of like going online and like just testing the waters might make you feel better about that. But then I wouldn't go on like a physical date until you were ready and you were like, yeah, I'm pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, I think, you know, like the thing is, and like that my idealistic view as someone who's not in this position is that like you've got to know where you are and you've got to see that this is a process like a hangover that we all know. But the fact that they can write, like if I was at that position where I could write down exactly how I was feeling and I could articulate this thing that I was feeling, that's a good position to be in and hold on to that. And like I don't know, this is a rough year. I think as soon as it's next, we're all going to forget 2020 happened. Before you know it, we can just rub this out and go on. So just, I don't know. Is that advice? Is that just thoughts?
No, I think that's really real. I think that's really, really real. I think 2020 was a blip.
Yeah.
It's been really good for me in a lot of ways, really bad for me in a lot of ways. And I think that does mean that the whole year just gets cancelled out.
Yeah, we're back to zero.
We're back to zero.
Like, fresh start, 2021, here we come. I think, you know, the year after a hard breakup is like always a good, well, I was going to say it's a good year.
The year after breakup's a good year. Wait.
Depends on what, well, like, or so, paint the picture. You're just getting over a breakup, it's New Year's. You're like, I'm going to start next year fresh. I'm at a New Year's party, probably by myself in my flat with some wine on a Zoom quiz.
Yes.
And I'm feeling empowered. Let's carry that energy to 2021.
And I'm going to be funny, and I'm going to be sharp, and I'm going to get all the answers to the Zoom quiz right, and even if I don't get them right, I'm going to have a good time. The main thing to remember is that you're going to have a good time.
Oh, absolutely. Although one thing that we can just leave in 2020 is like jokes that don't land on Zoom calls, which is a real hard point for me. I'm ready to just bury that in this year. So like, bad breakups and the history of jokes that no one got on Zoom calls, we'll leave them in 2020.
I think we can all, just going forward as a society, if a joke doesn't land, it never happened.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why I'm happy leaving 2020. The communal erasure of unfunny
Jokes I didn't land.
jokes. Yeah.
Thank you for, yeah, that's what we all need.
Yeah. Episode Cameron, my mood is so up. I'm having the best time.
Oh, I'm loving this. Like, and of all the Zoom calls I've had, this is the one where I feel the most like this is expanding the realms of what a Zoom call can do. I feel like I'm actually nearly sitting across the voice from you, the Zoom voice. But absolutely, this has been fun, and I've loved this. I feel great.
Yeah, Cameron, for the listeners, always has like the best possible energy. Like even when Cameron is feeling bad, Cameron's energy is the best possible energy.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, I feel like, but at the same time, like I think that's a nice thing about this. Like I come to see you, and then I feel like you can't feel bad if you're speaking to Isabella Shields. She'll just inject this positivity into you. It's great.
The final question on this very lovely podcast is,
okay, let's organically bring it back up. Like
we just had a little break, and then when we came back, we were talking about a time where I'd woken up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, gone through to Edinburgh for my studies, and then came to Cameron's house for dinner, but it was like 6 o'clock at night, and I'd been awake for like 13 hours. I usually need to have a shower, so I had a shower, and I accidentally like sprayed the shower like all over the wall because I like forgot that a shower curtain was a very necessary thing. We were just talking about like how nice it is to be able to shower at a friend's house.
Oh, it's so comforting. It's just like it's like friend intimacy, where you're not. It's like, and I was saying like, it's like the greatest compliment I think you could give someone is like, you're always welcome to use my shower. If you text me at like 3 a.m. being like, I just need a shower, like, I will be like, yes, of course.
Yeah.
No questions asked. I feel like
God.
Monica from Friends being like, that's my ambition to own 11 categories of towel. But like
a pink guest towel. A pink towel is for guests.
Oh, I love a pink towel.
Because I had a blue towel that was for Harlan, and then I took it to Harlan's, and then that's my towel at Harlan's.
That's a real transference. That's quite a.
Yeah, no, and it's also coming back to the first question. It's such a sign of how bossy I am that I was like, I will bring my towel to bathe in your house with. Like,
there's nothing worse than when you arrive somewhere, be it a friend's house, a relationship's house, a hostel, and you get given a bad towel.
But you know what I think is worse? This is such a tangent, but I prefer a rough towel to a super soft towel.
I think a soft towel is giving you what you want, but not what you need.
No, it doesn't dry you. It doesn't dry you.
A hard towel is hard because it's so dry, which means it has the capacity to get wet again. I feel like I'm at what's that quote? Like the bit at the end of Batman Begins, where it's like he's the hero, not the hero you want, the hero you need. Not the towel you want, but the towel
you need. It kind of exfoliates you as it dries.
Exactly. You don't want to be exfoliated, but sometimes it's exactly what you need. It's a passive towel. You want a towel to be assertive.
I want a dominant towel, yeah.
I think, well, this is another thing. I don't think rough towels are bought. Rough towels are made.
That's what I'm glad we said that in unison, Cameron, because I think a rough towel is a towel that has been used time and time again and can deliver.
It's a reliable towel.
Towel, a committed towel, committed to the cause of keeping you dry.
It's the Coldplay of towels. Even when they say it's their last album, they're coming back again.
Well, with the wisdom of the Coldplay towel, we have the final question of the podcast, which is, I'm in the longest relationship that I've ever been in, and I can't help but constantly worry that my partner is going to get sick of me soon because everyone else I've been with has. They haven't said anything to indicate that they feel like that, but I'm worried that we've just fallen into a pattern and will be bored with me soon. What can I do?
Again, this is real. Like, that's such a real thing.
That
Mm-hmm.
I really value not feeling bored. Like, I want to be stimulated. I want to have like nice flavors. I want to have nice imagery.
Yes.
It's probably clear that Cameron and I have had like a few wines, gin and tonics each at this point, rather, in the recording. But like, there's like a certain amount that I want to be like wined and dined, and there's a one amount that I want to wine and dine as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's also come up in the other question where I was like, oh, like everything feels like it's gonna have huge consequences, and that like me saying that I related to that.
Yeah.
So I think feeling like someone's getting bored is actually really a sign that you're getting bored.
Wow. I've never thought about that, but that's so true.
What do you think? What was your instinct with this question?
So, I mean, I'd love to come back to that, but I thought, so, so what they're saying is there's been relationships before that haven't worked out, but they seem to be taking that onto them. And, like, I think with the relationships that work or don't work, it's not down to one person's worth. It's down to chemistry between two people. And, you could meet someone that is so, like, in your mind, someone that is quite good looking and someone that on paper is oh, this person sounds really interesting to me, but you can have no chemistry because chemistry is this like more than human force that just exists that we can't control.
Yeah.
But I think, if these relationships doesn't work, I'd challenge the idea that it's because of them. Obviously, we all think, oh, this didn't work, it's my bad, because that's what people do. That's, oh, there was a failure in something, I'm taking that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, seems like it's that caring thing. It's that thing of someone that's like, that sees all the needs within a relationship and takes it upon themselves to fill them.
Yes.
It's a lovely, lovely quality. But when you do that, it also means when things don't work, that burden falls on you. When you're in a relationship that doesn't work, it's easy to take that burden on yourself that it didn't work. Mm-hmm. When in fact, that's a lack of chemistry. And actually, the fact that you are taking all the emotional needs in the relationship and taking that responsibility on yourself to fill them, that's an amazing thing. And that's such a lovely thing to do. But it doesn't mean when a relationship fails, you do get burnt because you've taken that on. But I think, yeah, I definitely challenge the idea that the relationships have ended before because of this one person. Yeah. Where actually has the chemistry changed? Some relationships are amazing, but they last for a specific time. But that doesn't make them any less great.
No.
But, we all have, people that we've been with that we're no longer with, but that's not a bad thing. But yeah, I definitely challenge that. But I think that as you say, Isabella, like when you think they've got bored, maybe you're the person that's got bored. Maybe they're not fulfilling your needs too. Maybe your needs, again, it's maybe both needs are as important as each other. Maybe your needs are as important as theirs, which the way that they're phrasing the question seems like they might not be thinking, but like, yeah, are they thinking that are they seeing their needs as being as important as their partners?
Well, because that's the thing, because I think like obviously like we've spoken already in this podcast about feeling like you just get stuck in like doing the same thing every day, like with a slight variation, you don't have like that much to say to each other. But I think like that's not stimulating to you. Like you need to work out what's stimulating to you and whether or not you're happy and whether or not you're getting what you want. And like if you're not, like, and if you think that's putting you in a place where you can't be in a relationship because it means that you can't give somebody else what they want, then you might need some time by yourself. But I don't know, I just think like stimulation is a really important part of anything, but more than anything else, it's an important part of your life.
Yeah, but like, when you say they need time alone, I'm like, we're all, with a relationship within life, there's always stuff going on. We can always take time away to figure out what it is we need. And that doesn't mean to say like, question, are we being given what we need in a relationship? It's just to figure out what it is that you want and go from there. But I think that given they're in a place to write this down, surely that means that they're in a place to figure out what they need for themselves. Yeah,
completely. I think it's a really like self-aware question. But I think it's what I don't like about the question is that they've taken total accountability for somebody else getting bored. And like I always remember it like constantly when I was younger, if I came to my dad and was like, I'm bored, he was like, only boring people get bored.
That would, if someone said to me, I'd be destroyed.
Completely. And I was like, fuck. I just admitted that I'm like a boring person to my own dad.
Game over.
know, it's like, and I do think that, like, I have obviously also had the concern as an anxious person who will go through every possible eventuality of every possible negative thing that, like, I'm too boring to be in a relationship with, and just being like, well, no, because, like, I have things I do every day. And also, like, one thing I was going to say there was that I love it. I love hearing about somebody else watching something that I would never watch.
Okay.
This is like the most simplistic, like, way to manage this. You don't have to watch everything together. Someone can tell you the story of what they've been watching, and you can be completely separate to it. And you can.
But I think that's really nice. Like, I love. But so this is a very big tangent, but, like, you know, a lot of the stuff that my interest lies in, and I'm now fortunately starting to find work within, is this idea of culture and storytelling. So, like, you know, look at Scotland, right? And as with every country, but our traditional culture comes from storytelling. It came through ballads, and it came through song, and a lot of the songs, if you go to Mackay, a lot of the tunes, if you listen to Scottish traditional music, a lot of those songs, the stories within them are passed down generation upon generation. And this idea of storytelling from person to person is maybe one of the most ultimately humanizing things that we have, from just sitting down and with one or more people hearing a story. So when you say, you know, watching stories on TV, I think that whole experience is amazing. I would say that because I'm trying to build a career in that practice. So, like, let's keep funding people doing that. But at the same time, like, I think when you hear someone, especially if you're with someone, it means, if you're dating someone, it means you're investing in hearing from them. And, like, you know, some TV shows, yeah, maybe I'd much rather have a person sit down and just tell me the story themselves. Like, I remember when I was younger, I was not a big reader, and a pal of mine would just sit and tell me the story of their favorite books, which I suppose could be quite worrying because it meant I was just making zero effort to read.
No,
but
not
I
at all.
loved hearing from someone that I knew and that I liked in their own words, and that's the crucial thing. Tell me the story of something. So yeah, when you say that, like, hear a TV show, you don't need to do everything together. And, like, yeah, the value of people's time does not end in your ability to provide a service. Yes. They're not your client, you know. It's not like you're not working under a contract to provide something. But I think that, you know, and I think that, you know, to experience things not together, like, and I think this is something in coronavirus, like one of the earlier questions I think hinted at, like, dating in coronavirus is difficult. It is, because it means you can't meet up and hear I mean, I suppose you can, and it's lovely when you can, but it's lovely to hear someone tell you a story in their words based on what they've seen. And if that's a TV show that's made them feel emotions and they can relate that back to you, almost that's better than watching the TV show, because you're hearing the emotional impact as well as the storyline itself.
Completely, and also because it, like, provides a critique in some way. Like, if someone watched something and they really didn't enjoy it, like, I love hearing about that. And they're like, this happened and this happened and this made absolutely no sense to me, and this did not, like, pick up where it left off. This didn't follow with, like, what was happening. But I find that really funny. I find it really interesting. Like, it's something Harlan's really, really good at. Like, I always say to Harlan that they're good at, like, debunking things and being like, this doesn't follow for these reasons. Like, think about this in these ways. But the other side of that is that I love hearing when anyone, like, including Harlan, is just so into something, and it's like, you will enjoy that so much, and it's like, I watched this, you should watch this, I'll tell you these things about it, but I won't tell you anything else, and then once you've watched it, we can talk about it. Like, I love that. I think one of the hardest things about, like, relationships, and one thing that I found really difficult, like, early on in my most significant relationships, was feeling like we had to have, like, every experience a joint experience, and, like, a really immense pressure to have everything, like, be together and exist as, like, this coagulant, codependent thing where you're like, you've lived it, it's been yours, the pair of you. But I think especially during COVID, as you were saying, like, you don't have the opportunity to go out and be separate. Like, and if somebody else doesn't have the opportunities, like, if somebody else in your relationship doesn't have the friends, doesn't have the, like, career, doesn't have the means to go out and have a separate experience, the pressure doesn't fall on you as much as you might think it does. To be the entertainment. Like,
but I think that's such a thing. Like, but it happens when you're young. Like, you know, you've got a friend over when you're young, and there's that pressure. If they look bored, I'm not being a good host, you know.
Yes.
And I you know, remember that? Like, and I'd have friends over, and I'm like, they look sad. Like, oh, I'm failed as a human being.
What was the other question we were kind of talking about that with? Was it question 2? The one
Yeah,
that was
it
like, every
was.
small decision seems like it has huge consequences. That is that total feeling of being like, I am the host, I am in control, everything I do needs to be perfect.
Yeah, it means when you're dating, no one's the host. You might be at someone's house, but it means you're both there. That's the point. Like, yeah, sure, if you're hosting a meeting, if you're seeing a friend, even seeing a friend, like, if someone you don't know that well, sure, there's someone that's having the host position. But like when you're dating, that means you're just there on equal playing fields. And you could be, yeah, sure, someone could be over at mine, but I'm like, I'm not the host. It's equal. And I think that is such a thing. But I think, that it's, but I think, so to refer to a Billy Connolly quote, he said at a stand-up, he said he loves hearing people talk about things that they know about and things that they're passionate about. There's something better than sitting down, and he was saying, like, someone's come in to do plumbing in your house. There's nothing better than just sitting down and hearing them talk in a passionate way about something that they know about and that they get. And it's just this amazing like thing just to hear something. And I think that's so true. Like, when people come to fix like our tiles, I'm like, tell me what you're doing. And they're like, yeah, cool. And I'm just like, I don't know, but it's just great. But I think in relationships, it's so nice when someone's like, listen, I have no idea about this topic, but you're passionate and I'm just riding that wave. And I think in a way, that's the best thing in a relationship because it means you're filling in gaps in different ways. And you've got some, if someone's telling me something that I know nothing about in a passionate way, I'm like, I don't even know the questions to ask. I can't even like chime in, but I just want to listen. It's great.
Yeah, because you don't want a mirror in a relationship. You want to be able to learn. Like, what's the point if you just sat across from someone looking at yourself? Like, I think that's so true. And what a beautiful quote. And I just think it's always so valuable to learn. I think the problem with stagnation is just that both parties in a relationship like aren't doing enough.
So what you're saying that you said it could be someone with any walk of life. Obviously, we're talking about relationships. Your podcast is breaking up. It's about relationships, and that's a really significant part. But I think it speaks to a lot of things where there are more relationships in our life than like romantic ones.
Yes.
And I think a lot of these questions, and when we end a relationship, it's like the only way for us to feel value is for someone to be romantic with us again. But actually, there are so many different types of relationships that we can encounter. You could be single for a year, but in that year, you could feel more intimate than you've ever felt in a relationship because of the relationships that you have and the way that you connect with people. But I just think, particularly with this last one, it's about someone being bored and being sick of them. Like, if you're able to articulate that, chances are you're probably not the most boring person, because if you're boring, it's the lack of self-awareness,
Yeah.
And I think, but also like a lot of these things within dating, the best thing with dating, I think, is sometimes just take a step away and engage in relationships that aren't romantic. But as you say, you can get these really fascinating encounters that aren't, and in a way, maybe somehow they are more beneficial to you as a person, because as a relationship, the benefit of those encounters is to this joint relationship, but you've got to go away and just figure it out yourself. And I think sometimes when there's more distance, it can be beneficial.
Completely. Like, I don't know, I just think I really, really agree that absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Okay.
And I think it's really true, because I know, like, and even if that's like the shortest possible absence, like, I think the strain that COVID's put in a lot of relationships is this, like, this sense that you both have to be together all the time, you have to have the same taste. I think a lot of people in relationships feel like they have to have the same taste and the same abilities in every possible capacity, but it's really the opposite. Like, both of you are working together to try and make this cohesive body of a person who's like capable in as many ways as possible, considerate in as many ways as possible, and like loving in as many ways as possible.
Yeah. And do you know what's lovely about that is, like, I think each relationship you give a lot and you get a lot. Like, I'm just quoting like Noah and the Whale lyrics here, but like
Noah and the Whale, oh my god, I haven't thought about Noah and the Whale in so long.
Let's all take a minute to just think about Noah and the Whale.
Remember the song 5 years time.
Oh, no. They had anyway, again, like, I'm thinking of a song called Give a Little Love or Jacosta. Is it? Anyway, never mind. Like, that's we'll save that for the Noah and the Whale Appreciation podcast that is to come. From, but, I think that, like, it's in a relationship, you give a lot and you get a lot. And I think relationships ending is rough. But at the same time, you've got to look back and think, well, actually, the relationships are always really intimate and you'll always take a lot. So we are all a product in a way of our previous relationships, as much as we might want to or not think about that. And sometimes you would just like draw a line.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I think that with what you're saying, you bring things, and someone can bring something to you, a program or a way of thinking, or to call you out on something in the most kind of caring way. But they're all good. And for someone that's just out of a relationship, particularly a lot of the kind of people that are kind of writing in, that I have also been, I've written this podcast and you gave me great advice. Do you know, took notes. Do you know, but like I think that relationships ending is a great thing, because it means you can just consolidate that bit of knowledge that you got and take that with you. I suppose the question is, could a relationship ever end where you've gained nothing from it, even an insight to what you need or an insight what you don't want to stand for? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think that's ever true. I think every relationship gives you something. And it doesn't necessarily give you that person, and you should never want the conclusion of a relationship to be that you get the other person. It should always be what you learn about yourself.
Yeah, because ultimately, like if you're not happy within yourself, that's because there's two people in a relationship for each person. It's not just the other person, it's you. But like I think in a relationship, you learn most about yourself when you're out of your comfort zone. And I think a lot of things through professional career, different things you can do can take you really far out of your comfort zone. And I know we're conscious of time, but I'd love to talk about that more. So things that have taken me out of the comfort zone have been different types of professional work, but also relationships, those two things. And I think when you do, that's when you learn and you figure stuff out and you come back and think, right, then your comfort zone grows, and then you approach a new relationship differently. And I think, no matter what a relationship gives you, good or bad, you come out kind of either with a great thing or having just been cleared out from a negative emotion.
Yes.
And I'm literally just quoting Chris Martin in an interview he gave post Gwyneth. So I don't want to rip him off, but I think it is just that thing where, it's a great time to take stock. And it's rough, it's horrible, but there's some great, like, just realizations that are always going to be dripping down.
And process of like evaluation that can really make you who you are.
Because, it's easy, so talking about being boring, is that what they said? Or we just like,
they were worried about boring their partner, yeah.
Yeah. But I think, the real thing is being boring is just never moving forward, keeping the same comfort zone your whole life. But like, I don't know. But as a kind of final thought for me, the type of person who would write into a podcast something quite personal is definitely not the kind of person who would ever be boring. And it's also the kind of person who'd always be pushing their boundaries of what they know about themselves.
Yes, I think so. I think anyone with that kind of capacity for self-criticism is an interesting person. Thank you so much for coming on, Cameron. This has been one of my favourite podcasts I've ever done.
I mean, as any opportunity to have a good, deep chat with you, I'm thrilled to do it. But no, this has been great. It's it's a weird privilege to answer people's agony aunts as someone who has no training in doing so.
I know, and I don't have that either, but I just think it's so nice that like anyone wants to give me their time, anyone wants to give me a question, and
it's just, I think now, like the sense of community, I suppose community has always been like an underpinning point of culture and identity. But now community exists online. And I think the idea of people writing into a podcast and hearing people talk about that and give them advice is such a great community thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I think it's really nice just to get feedback, really. So I don't know.
Especially this year when we're so disconnected, to be able to write into a podcast with just your thoughts on something and be part of this conversation is like a great way to beat 2020. To just like 1-0 2020, 1-0 coronavirus.
And that's what we want. That's the ultimate conclusion.
Also, on that point, I don't know if you want to be Graham Norton and not kind of give away the time of recording. It's about to become December.
Yeah, well, this will be out in December.
Sorry, it is December. How could I have forgotten? This was recorded today.
So 7th of December, what are your words of wisdom for the rest of 2020, us getting through these last 3 weeks?
I think we have run, I don't know, remember at school we had like a running track and I was not fit at school. Saying that suggests that I'm fit now and it's peaks and troughs.
You are fit now, you're a runner.
I try, I'm trying. But I feel like we're at the last little Or I don't know. Actually, I think a better analogy is we are living in a 2-floored house and we have gone down to the kitchen downstairs end of the night to get a glass of water. We've got to the bottom of our stairs and we've realized that we're now terrified of the darkness of the bottom of the house. And we are sprinting back up to our bedrooms. I think that's the point in 2020 that we're at now. We are ready to just slam our bedroom door shut, but we have like a hallway to go across and we're terrified. And we just have that last sprint to get through. Yeah. That's December. We've got this. Let's just get to our sealed bedrooms.
Completely.
With our hydration, which I also, I don't think I've been hydrated for 6 months. Like, it's not good.
So to conclude, Cameron, what are your film and song recommendations, or your TV recommendations, or your album recommendations to get us through?
Okay, so I think a lot of this. I have one song that I think I just love coming back to, not just because of the lyrics, but because like as a kind of body of sound, like it just hits you. Like it's and also the album. So like it's called Third Eye by Florence and the Machine, and like it's just this amazing song of like just like it's very self-reflective. I heard her in an interview and she was like, I thought I was writing this song for someone else, but I realized I was writing it for myself. And it was just this. I mean, again,
Aww.
Florence and the Machine. Like Florence Welsh, is she the Joni Mitchell of our time? Maybe. I don't want to be controversial, but I think she very well could be. Anyway, this song is just like this great moment of like reflection and looking back and just like evaluating yourself and just like checking in. And I think, you know, all this chat we've had tonight is like post breakup, post all that, and I just think this song is just it just levels you. You know, when you hear a song, you're just like, stop your day for like 3 minutes and like, whew. But the album as well, like How Big, How Blue, How Beautiful, it's amazing because it just takes you on this like, it's like the stages of grief. It's like stages of breakup. It like starts with, you know, how can someone hurt me like this? And it's like, we built a ship to wreck. It's like we this was set up to fail. And then I think there's always, and I love albums that have this song that is like do you know what I mean? Like thesis moment. I hear people say that, like, you know, the thesis moment of an album. This is what it's about. And I feel like that's sort of like, again, in Coldplay's Ghost Stories, Sky Full of Stars is that like moment that defines the album. As Chris Martin says, he was looking for track 8 and then he got it. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to bring everything back to Coldplay, but like, you know, and but in Florence and the Machine, this song is just like this moment of like post breakup. You just have this calmness and acceptance and just like self realization, and it's amazing. And I just think I just love the album. Florence Welsh, like absolute queen, love her.
I was so obsessed with her when I was young. Like I went to her gig in
like King Tut's.
So King Tut's. I saw Florence Welch in King Tut's, and then I was front row with Rebecca. I don't know if I should Rebecca at Tea in the Park when we went in 2012, I want to say. And I got to grip the leg of a Kaiser Chief that year as well. So Florence and the Machine is a very special. We were front cover of the BBC coverage of Tea in the Park. I'll put that on the story for the podcast release.
In the show notes. In the show notes,
you can see a photo of me gripping the leg of a Kaiser Chief.
If that's not top of your CV, I don't know what else could possibly.
I was on the BBC homepage.
That's like BBC 2014. That's the citation to have.
But yeah, no, she has a very special place in my heart. But what is your other media recommendation? What is your...
Okay, so I've tried to find a film, but like it is literally just... So I have one that is a really beautiful moment, but it includes a spoiler. Do you have a protocol for spoilers on your or do we just avoid spoilers?
Most of the podcast is spoilers.
Okay, so like it is... Anyway, my favorite program... Not without its critiques, but I think there's a lot of great stuff from it. It's called Mr. Robot. We have discussed the merits of Mr. Robot. Have you seen the final series?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Anyway, so I'll be vague, but there's a moment in the last series, soundtracked by Carly Rae Jepsen, which you would not expect from the show. Oh, I don't want to ruin this moment in the show for you, because it's literally like the third last episode of the entire program. I don't want to ruin the end for you, but in fact, no, I think I'll pick another one because this is a really beautiful moment. But when you've watched, but you have to watch this and then tell me what you think. Because,
so the recommendation is to watch that and then message Cameron exactly what you think.
Okay, yeah. So my recommendation would have been the series for Mr. Robot, episode 10, called Gone. And it is the last sequence of that episode. If you've watched that, at Cameron J. Mackay on Twitter, Mackay, get into my DMs. I would love to discuss. But for those of you who haven't watched it, like, I will say, I think one of my favorite romantic films is a film called About Time. It exists in a world where people can travel in a way through time. It's not realistic because the main character, Margot Robbie, comes and stays in their house for a summer. That is not... Margot Robbie has never come and stayed in my house for a summer, so I can only assume that this film is existing in an alternative reality where Margot Robbie just exists, staying at people's house, spending the summers in other people's like beach houses. So it's just a film that exists very far from like, it's not trying to be like realistic, but it's a lovely film. It's emotional. It's just a film to exercise all of the emotions you have and start fresh. But it's a beautiful...
I think it's a beautiful film. I think it's really lovely. I know people have their problems with it because like, oh, he was a man and all he did was try and get off with women again and again. But I think that's exactly what I would do as a woman.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've never thought about it from that perspective, but it's true. But if you just want some good, wholesome Bill Nye content, then...
Also, that's not all he does, because he also tries to help out his sister. He tries to like make a lot
This is
of
true.
really different.
And also, that Black Mirror episode he's in as well. He's in some emotionally...
Cameron, I watched that the other day. I went on...
Oh my goodness.
Weird. So I had my... This is not interesting to the listeners.
I'm interested.
My first submission to my PhD submission to my supervisor. And I just spent the whole day writing about existentialism with fucking Black Mirror on the background, and that episode was the only one that I was like really looking up at a lot.
That bit on the top of the cliff where he's like, as a kind of robotic human, artificial intelligence, he's delivered this emotional line that's like, what do you want me to be, in this incredible moment. And like, I just think that's beautiful. But yeah, I think
it's great. What do you want me to be could be the theme of this episode, to be honest.
How many... So we've got some title this. What was the first one? Like, relationship insurance, : what do you want me to be?
Yeah.
Have I not met this?
I'll just put the anxiety episode with Cameron Mackay.
Yeah, but I think that's it. Like, what do you want me to be? I've not met that. I'm so sorry. Please put a claim in with your insurance company. I'm out of the equation. We'll exchange insurance. Like, the relationship's over. We'll exchange insurance details and move on with our lives.
Oh, I've absolutely loved talking to you, Cameron. You're welcome on any time, like genuinely whenever. I'm
my goodness. Well, I'm going to cash in on that soon because I feel like we have a lot more catching up to do. But yeah, I wonder how accurate our co-star friendship as horoscopes were in predicting the episode.
Wait, I can't remember what they said. But basically, you're being self-indulgent and I'm being prideful.
I mean, I would be self-indulgent. That is something that I would do. And a podcast is the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, I think you've been self-indulgent and I'm prideful, and co-star just needs to get a grip. Where can people find you online?
People can find me, if they so choose, and I'm grateful that they would like to, at Cameron J. Mackay, Mackay on Twitter, or if you're in a kind of visual mood, head over to Instagram. CMac Productions is my like new professional capacity. But yeah, come and DM me. I'm here for it.
DM Cameron Mackay. Slide into his DMs. If you.
Where can people find you, Isabella? You're the person people want to talk to. You're the real soul of the podcast. Let's all jump into your DMs. I'm already there, and I'm grateful to be there.
Everyone is super welcome to jump into my DMs anytime. I will message you back, basically until 1 o'clock in the morning, at which time I will be asleep. But you can catch us on Instagram at Breaking Up Podcast, and I will fill your life with really stupid stories, basically about who I fancy this week, about memes, about nonsense. And you can email me at agonyauntquestions@breakinguppodcast@gmail.com. Basically, whenever you can find me, you can send me a question, and I will think about it, and I'll try and put it into the right episode for the podcast. I'll try and pick the right guest for it, and everything will be really chill, really nice. So email me whenever, DM me whenever, DM Cameron whenever.
Always.
And I hope you have a really nice week. I hope you have a really nice December. The next episode that you'll be hearing is me talking with 3 of my friends, Rowan, Hannah, and Nell, about the works of Jane Austen. And the breakups in Jane Austen. So
my S5 teenager in me is here for that. Like, I cannot wait to tune in.
So yeah, brush up and we'll catch you soon. Thanks again to Cameron, the absolute
Thank you.
Okay, bye.